The Deception captain, Alina Vasquez, stood on the bridge of the Perseverance, watching the stars through the viewport with practiced calm. The ship looked like every other human vessel the aliens had observed for the past century and a half, utilitarian and seemingly primitive compared to the sleek vessels of the galactic hegemony. The bridge was cramped, filled with monitors displaying outdated interfaces and control systems that appeared to be decades behind alien technology. Reflection in the viewport showed a woman in her mid-40s with steel-gray hair pulled back in a regulation ponytail. Her uniform was the standard issue blue of the Terran Confederation Navy, complete with fabric patches and metal insignia that looked quaint compared to the holographic displays favored by other species. To any alien observer, she would appear to be just another human trying to make do with inferior technology. The communication array crackled to life. Lieutenant Commander James Park, her operations officer, turned from his station with a grim expression. "Captain, we're receiving a priority transmission from the Hegemony Council. It's being broadcast on all frequencies." Alina nodded. "Put it through, Commander. Let's hear what they have to say this time." The main screen flickered and displayed the imposing figure of Archon Zixtoric, the current leader of the galactic hegemony. The creature stood nearly 3 meters tall, its crystalline exoskeleton refracting light in patterns that hurt human eyes to look at directly. Behind the Archon, Alina could see the magnificent council chamber of the hegemony capital ship, with representatives from all 12 member species arranged in a semicircle. "Attention, human vessels," Zixtoric's voice resonated through the bridge speakers, translated by the Universal Communication Protocols. "I am Archon Zixtoric, speaking for the galactic hegemony. For too long, your species has been allowed to expand beyond your designated boundaries. This ends now." Alina kept her expression neutral, though internally she was calculating distances and tactical positions. The hegemony had been growing increasingly aggressive toward human settlements, and intelligence suggested they were preparing for a decisive action. "Your species has established colonies in 17 star systems beyond your allocated space," the Archon continued. "You have built mining operations, research stations, and military outposts without permission from the hegemony. This violation of galactic law cannot continue." Lieutenant Park leaned toward Alina. "Captain, our long-range sensors are detecting massive fleet movements. It looks like they're positioning forces around all our outer colonies." Alina acknowledged him with a slight nod, but kept her attention on the transmission. The next words confirmed her suspicions. "You have exactly 48 hours to begin evacuating all human personnel from these unauthorized settlements. Any humans remaining after this deadline will be considered hostile occupiers and dealt with." Accordingly, the aliens' multifaceted eyes seemed to focus directly on the camera. "Your primitive weapons and outdated vessels cannot stand against the combined might of the hegemony. We have been patient with your species because we believed you were too weak to pose a threat. Do not force us to prove how correct that assessment is." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Alina walked to the central command station, her boots echoing on the metal deck plating. To anyone watching, she appeared to be just another human, captain facing an impossible situation with inferior technology and limited options. "Commander Park," she said quietly, "send a message to Earth Command. Tell them the hegemony has taken the bait." Park's fingers moved across his control panel, but instead of using the standard communication array, he activated a hidden quantum entanglement transmitter built into the ship's superstructure. The message would reach Earth's command instantaneously, completely undetectable by alien sensors. Message sent, Captain. Earth's command acknowledges and confirms. Operation Masquerade is proceeding as planned. Alina smiled slightly. Operation Masquerade had been in development for over a century, conceived by the greatest strategic minds humanity had ever produced. When humans first encountered the galactic hegemony, they had made a crucial decision that would shape the next 150 years of galactic history. Instead of revealing their true technological capabilities, they had chosen to appear weak, primitive, and harmless. Every human ship that aliens had observed was deliberately outdated, equipped with technology that was decades behind what humans actually possessed. Every military exercise conducted in alien-monitored space featured weapons and tactics that made humanity appear to be struggling with basic space combat. Every diplomatic interaction was carefully crafted to reinforce the impression that humans were a minor species barely capable of interstellar travel. The reality was far different. Hidden throughout the solar system and beyond were shipyards, research facilities, and military installations that would have shocked the hegemony into immediate action if they had known of their existence. Humanity had been preparing for this moment for generations, and now it was finally time to reveal the truth. In the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, Admiral Sarah Cross stood in the command center of Bastion Station, humanity's most advanced military installation. The station was built inside a hollowed-out asteroid, completely invisible to external sensors, but housing enough firepower to level a planet. Around her, hundreds of technicians and officers worked at stations that would have seemed like magic to the aliens who thought they understood human technology. Admiral, reported Captain Thomas Wright, her chief of staff, all hidden fleets are reporting ready status. We have over 3,000 vessels in position throughout the galaxy, all maintaining stealth protocols. Sarah nodded, her eyes fixed on the holographic display showing the positions of both human and alien forces. The hegemony had deployed nearly 8,000 ships for their operation against human colonies, confident that their overwhelming numerical superiority would guarantee victory. They had no idea that humanity's true fleet was larger than their own. "Have the colony defenders received their orders?" she asked. "Yes, Admiral. All colonial forces are prepared to execute the deception protocol. They'll maintain the illusion of weakness until the moment we give the signal." On the human colony world of New Terra, Governor Lisa Chen was addressing her planetary council. The planet was home to 12 million humans, with cities, farms, and industrial centers that had been built over the past 60 years. To the approaching hegemony fleet, it appeared to be defended by a handful of outdated orbital platforms and a small flotilla of primitive human vessels. "The hegemony fleet will arrive in 18 hours, Lisa announced to the assembled council. "Members, our defensive preparations are complete. Remember, we must maintain the appearance of weakness until the very last moment." Council member Robert Martinez raised his hand. "Governor, are we certain this plan will work? The hegemony is bringing over 400 ships to our system alone. If something goes wrong..." Lisa's expression was confident. "The plan has been tested and refined for decades. The hegemony thinks they're attacking a defenseless colony with primitive weapons. They're about to learn how wrong they are." Above New Terra, the orbital defense platforms appeared to be simple metal structures bristling with basic kinetic weapons and laser arrays. In reality, each platform was equipped with technology that would have impressed even the most advanced hegemony engineers: quantum field generators, particle beam weapons, and defensive systems that could manipulate space-time. Itself lay hidden beneath facades of primitive human engineering. Captain Elena Vasquez received another transmission as the Perseverance patrolled the edge of the system. This time, it was from her counterpart in the Hegemony fleet, Commander Vexiala of the Hegemony cruiser Stellar Dominion. Human vessel, the aliens' translated voice carried obvious contempt. You are ordered to withdraw from this system immediately. Your presence here is a violation of the evacuation order. Alina responded according to her scripted role. Commander Begsalar, we are a civilian evacuation vessel. We're here to transport colonists who cannot be evacuated by other means. Please allow us to complete our mission. Negative, human. Your vessel is clearly military in nature. Withdraw. Immediately or face the consequences. Alina looked at her crew, noting the tension in their expressions. Every person on the bridge was a combat veteran, trained on systems that made anything the aliens had seem primitive by comparison. But they had to maintain the illusion a little longer. Commander, we have no weapons capable of threatening your vessel. Surely you can allow us to complete our humanitarian mission. Vexiala's response was predictable. Your species' tendency toward deception is well documented. You will withdraw now, or we will disable your vessel and arrest your crew for violation of hegemony law. The alien commander cut the transmission without waiting for a response. Alina turned to her crew with a slight smile. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it appears our performance has been convincing. Commander Park, signal the fleet. It's time to drop the masquerade. Throughout the galaxy, the moment humanity had been preparing for over a century had finally arrived. In 17 star systems, hegemony fleets were positioning themselves to remove what they believed to be defenseless human colonies. They expected minimal resistance from primitive vessels and outdated weapons. Instead, they were about to encounter the true military might of humanity, and the galaxy would never be the same. The awakening the moment Elena Vasquez gave the signal. The Perseverance began its transformation. What the aliens had taken for primitive armor plating slid away to reveal gleaming quantum-enhanced hull sections. The ship's apparent length of 200 meters extended to nearly 800 meters as hidden sections unfolded from dimensional storage spaces. Weapon ports opened along the hull, revealing arrays of particle cannons, quantum torpedoes, and gravitational manipulators that no alien species had ever encountered. Commander Vexiala watched in horror from the bridge of the Stellar Dominion. As sensor readings that should have been impossible flooded his displays. What is happening? How can a human vessel generate that much power? His tactical officer, a nervous Krillian named Vexmore, was frantically checking his instruments. Commander, the readings must be wrong. No human technology could produce energy signatures at this level. Elena's voice came through the communication array, but now it carried none of the deference or uncertainty it had held moments before. Commander Bexala, this is Captain Elena Vasquez of the Terran Confederation battlecruiser Perseverance. Your fleet is now completely surrounded by human vessels. I suggest you reconsider your position. As if summoned by her words, space around the hegemony fleet began to shimmer. Ships materialized from nowhere, their stealth fields deactivating to reveal a force that dwarfed the alien armada. The human vessels were unlike anything the hegemony had ever seen. Their hulls seemed to bend light around them, and their energy signatures indicated power systems that should have been theoretically impossible. Dr. Marcus Chen stood in the command center of the human flagship Indomitable, watching the expressions. of the alien commanders on his screens. As humanity's leading expert on quantum physics and dimensional engineering, he had spent his entire career developing the technologies that were now being revealed to the galaxy. "Admiral Cross," he reported, "all stealth fields are down. The hegemony fleets are detecting our true numbers for the first time." Admiral Sarah Cross nodded grimly, and their response, "Doctor," panic, confusion, and disbelief. Their sensors are telling them things they thought were impossible. "We're detecting emergency communications across all their fleets as they try to understand what they're seeing." The human fleet that had revealed itself was staggering in its scope. Over 3,000 vessels, ranging from fast attack craft. 2 massive dreadnoughts had been positioned throughout the galaxy without the hegemony's knowledge. Each ship incorporated technology that was decades or even centuries ahead of anything the aliens possessed. Archon's Ixtoric's voice cut through the communication channels, reaching every ship in both fleets. "This is impossible. Human technology cannot support vessels of this size or power. These readings must be the result of some form of deception or illusion." Alina responded from the Perseverance. "I'm afraid the only deception here, Archon, is the one we've been maintaining for the past 150 years. Every human ship you've observed, every military exercise you've monitored, every technological assessment you've made about our species has been carefully designed to hide our true capabilities." The alien leader's crystalline form seemed to flicker with agitation. "You are lying. We have studied your species extensively. Your technology is primitive, your weapons are crude, and your vessels are inferior to those of any hegemony member species." Admiral Cross's voice joined the conversation. "From the indomitable, that's what we wanted you to think, Archon. When humanity first encountered the hegemony, we made a strategic decision. Instead of revealing our true technological level, we chose to appear weak, insignificant, and harmless. It was a deception that has taken 150 years to perfect." Dr. Chen activated a holographic display that would be visible to all alien vessels. The display showed the hidden human installations throughout the galaxy, massive shipyards built inside asteroid fields, research stations disguised as mining operations, and military bases concealed within the atmospheres of gas giants. "For over a century," Dr. Chen explained, "humanity has been developing technologies that your species cannot even comprehend. We have mastered quantum field manipulation, dimensional engineering, and space-time distortion. While you believed we were struggling with basic fusion power, we had already developed zero-point energy systems. While you thought our ships were limited to sublight speeds, we had created instantaneous transportation networks across the galaxy." The display showed human vessels moving through space in ways that defied known physics. Ships that could phase through solid matter, weapons that could manipulate the fundamental forces of the universe, and defensive systems that could bend reality itself around their vessels. "Commander," Vexilla's voice was barely controlled, "if you possess such advanced technology, why did you hide it? Why allow your species to be treated as inferior for so long?" Elena's response carried the weight of generations of planning. "Because, Commander, we learned something very important when we first encountered the hegemony. Advanced civilizations in this galaxy have a tendency to eliminate potential threats before they become dangerous. If we had revealed our true capabilities from the beginning, your species and your allies would have united to destroy us before we could fully develop our potential." The truth of her words was evident in the historical records. The hegemony had eliminated or subjugated dozens of species that had shown signs of advanced technological development. Only by appearing weak and primitive had humanity been able to survive and grow. Admiral Cross continued the explanation. We used the time you gave us to study your technologies, learn your weaknesses, and develop countermeasures for every weapon and defense system in your arsenal. We know more about hegemony military capabilities than some of your own commanders do. Asterisk, as if to demonstrate this point, the human fleet began to move. Their vessels flowed through space like living entities, their movements coordinated with a precision that spoke of advanced artificial intelligence and quantum communication systems. The hegemony forces, despite their numerical advantage, suddenly found themselves outmaneuvered and outgunned. The first demonstration of human weapons came when the Perseverance fired a single shot at a nearby asteroid. The beam that emerged from the ship's primary cannon was not the crude laser or kinetic projectile the aliens expected. Instead, it was a focused stream of quantum energy that struck the asteroid and caused it to simply cease to exist. Not destroyed, not vaporized, but erased from reality as if it had never been there. Quantum dissolution beam, Dr. Chen explained calmly. One of our more recent developments. It disrupts the fundamental particles that make up matter, causing them to return to their quantum ground state. The effect is instantaneous and irreversible. The silence that followed this demonstration was deafening. Across the hegemony fleets, alien commanders were staring at their screens in disbelief. The implications of what they had just witnessed were staggering. Archon 6 Thoric S voice, when it finally came, carried none of its earlier arrogance. What do you want from us, humans? If you possess such power, why have you not used it to conquer the galaxy as we would have done? Admiral Cross's response revealed the fundamental difference between humanity and the hegemony. Because Archon conquest was never our goal. We hid our strength not to prepare for domination, but to prepare for survival. The hegemony has ruled this galaxy through fear and force for thousands of years. We offer something different. The human fleet began to demonstrate technologies that seemed to violate the laws of physics. Ships that could exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, weapons that could strike targets across vast distances instantaneously, and defensive systems that could manipulate time itself to prevent damage. We offer cooperation, Alina added. For 150 years, we have watched the hegemony suppress technological development, limit exploration, and maintain control through intimidation. We propose a new model for galactic civilization. The holographic display changed to show a vision of the future. Collaborative research stations, shared exploration missions, and peaceful trade between species that had been enemies for millennia. It was a vision that no alien species had dared to imagine under hegemony rule. Commander Vexiala's voice was thoughtful. And if we refuse, if the hegemony chooses to fight rather than cooperate, the human fleet's response was immediate and coordinated. Every ship simultaneously activated defensive systems that created a shimmering barrier around them, then demonstrated their offensive capabilities by targeting empty space with weapons that tore holes in reality itself. Then you will face the consequences of your choice, Admiral Cross replied, but we hope it won't come to that. The galaxy is vast enough for all of us to prosper if we work together rather than against each other. The revelation of humanity's true power had changed everything. The hegemony, which had ruled through superior technology and overwhelming force, suddenly found themselves facing a species that had surpassed them in every measurable way. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted in a matter of hours. As the human fleets held position around the alien forces, waiting for their response, one thing was clear. The galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had spent 150 years preparing for this moment, and now the future of galactic civilization hung in the balance. The age of hegemony dominance was over. The age of human ascendancy had begun.
First contact gone wrong. Supreme Commander Vexthor stood at the observation deck of the Drachnid Empire's flagship Eternal Dominion, his scaled hands clasped behind his back as he watched the Edge Nebula paint streaks of purple and blue across the void. The massive vessel, over 3 kilometers in length, represented the pinnacle of Drachnid engineering and military might. Yet something about today's patrol felt different, a disturbance in the usually predictable patterns of space. Supreme Commander, his second-in-command, Sub-Commander Zarkax, interrupted his contemplation. Long-range sensors have detected an unknown vessel approaching the nebula's outer boundary. Vexthor's vertical pupils contracted slightly, the only outward sign of his interest. Classification: unknown, sir. The design doesn't match any species in our database. It's relatively small, approximately 300 meters in length. Minimal weapons signature detected. Vexthor's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. The Drachnid Empire had spent centuries cataloging every spacefaring race in this sector of the galaxy. An unknown vessel could mean only one thing: a new species had achieved faster than light travel. Bring us closer, but maintain a respectful distance. Let's see how they react to our presence. The massive Drachnid vessel adjusted course, its crystal matrix engines pulsing with deep purple energy. As they drew closer, Vexthor studied the strange ship through the high-resolution viewer. Its design was unlike anything he'd seen before, sleek and angular, with a distinctive symmetry that spoke of both efficiency and aesthetic consideration. Most intriguingly, it showed no signs of fear or aggression at their approach. "They're broadcasting a signal, sir," the communications officer reported. "It appears to be a greeting. Put it through." A clear voice filled the bridge, speaking in perfectly translated galactic standard. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth exploration vessel Horizon. We come in peace and friendship, seeking to establish diplomatic relations with new civilizations." Vexthor's antennae twitched in surprise. Their translation matrix had never adapted to a new language so quickly. These humans, as they called themselves, must have remarkably logical linguistic patterns. "Greetings, Captain Chen. I am Supreme Commander Vexthor of the Drachnid Empire. Your presence in our territory is unexpected. Our apologies, Supreme Commander. We were unaware this region was claimed. We'd be happy to discuss proper diplomatic protocols and boundaries." Something about the human's tone made Vexthor's scales bristle. There was no fear, no proper deference to the Empire's authority. Even more disturbing was how their small vessel's shields had automatically adjusted frequency to match the scanning beams from the Eternal Dominion, a technological feat that should have been impossible for a first-contact species. "Sub-Commander," Vexthor said quietly, "analyze their shield harmonics. Something isn't right here." Zarkax's claws danced across the tactical display. "Sir, their defensive systems are far more advanced than their vessel's size would suggest. And there's something else. Their power signature is—" Before he could finish, alarms blared across the bridge. The human vessel's energy readings had suddenly spiked, but not in any way that indicated weapon charging. Instead, it seemed to be receiving something. "Multiple quantum signatures detected," the sensor officer shouted. They're identical to the human vessel, but they're appearing throughout the nebula." Vexthor's blood ran cold as the tactical display updated. Dozens, then hundreds of phantom signatures began appearing, each one exactly matching the Horizon's energy pattern. Either they were dealing with the most sophisticated holographic technology he'd ever encountered, or— "Sir," Captain Chen's voice came through again, now tinged with regret. "I should inform you that we detected your Empire's recent annexation of the Meridian Cluster. The genocide of the peaceful Meridians hasn't gone unnoticed. We hoped first contact could proceed differently, But your Empire's actions demanded a response. The Phantom's signature suddenly solidified on sensors. They weren't holograms. Somehow, this single human vessel had called forth an entire fleet from quantum space, each ship an exact duplicate of the original. "Open fire," Vex Thor commanded, but it was too late. The human vessels, real or phantom, it no longer mattered, had already begun their attack. The Eternal Dominion's supposedly impenetrable shields collapsed under weapons that seemed to ignore the laws of physics themselves. The last thing Supreme Commander Vex Thor saw before emergency transport was the sight of his mighty flagship being systematically disabled by weapons fired from ships that, according to everything he knew about science, couldn't possibly exist. The Drachnid Empire had ruled this sector for 10,000 years. But in the span of 10 minutes, everything they thought they knew about their military superiority had been upended by a single human ship that became many. The age of uncontested Drachnid dominion had ended. The era of humanity had begun. The Silent Hunter. Supreme Commander Vex Thor stood at the observation deck of the Drachnid Empire's flagship Eternal Dominion, his scaled hands clasped behind his back as he watched the Edge Nebula paint streaks of purple and blue across the void. The massive vessel, over 3 kilometers in length, represented the pinnacle of Drachnid engineering and military might. Yet something about today's patrol felt different. A disturbance in the usually predictable patterns of space. Supreme Commander, his second-in-command, Sub-Commander Zarkax, interrupted his contemplation. Long-range sensors have detected an unknown vessel approaching the nebula's outer boundary. Vex Thor's vertical pupils contracted slightly, the only outward sign of his interest. Classification: unknown, sir. The design doesn't match any species in our database. It's relatively small, approximately 300 meters in length. Minimal weapons signature detected. Vex Thor's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. The Drachnid Empire had spent centuries cataloging every spacefaring race in this sector of the galaxy. An unknown vessel could mean only one thing: a new species had achieved faster than light travel. Bring us closer, but maintain a respectful distance. Let's see how they react to our presence. The massive Drachnid vessel adjusted course, its crystal matrix engines pulsing with deep purple energy. As they drew closer, Vex Thor studied the strange ship through the high-resolution viewer. Its design was unlike anything he'd seen before, sleek and angular, with a distinctive symmetry that spoke of both efficiency and aesthetic consideration. Most intriguingly, it showed no signs of fear or aggression at their approach. "They're broadcasting the signal, sir," the communications officer reported. "It appears to be a greeting. Put it through." A clear voice filled the bridge, speaking in perfectly translated galactic standard. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth exploration vessel Horizon. We come in peace and friendship, seeking to establish diplomatic relations with new civilizations." Vex Thor's antennae twitched in surprise. Their translation matrix had never adapted to a new language so quickly. These humans, as they called themselves, must have remarkably logical linguistic patterns. "Greetings, Captain Chen. I am Supreme Commander Vex Thor of the Drachnid Empire. Your presence in our territory is unexpected. Our apologies, Supreme Commander. We were unaware this region was claimed. We'd be happy to discuss proper diplomatic protocols and boundaries." Something about the human's tone made Vex Thor's scales bristle. There was no fear, no proper deference to the Empire's authority. Even more disturbing was how their small vessel's shields had automatically adjusted frequency to match the scanning beams from the Eternal Dominion, a technological feat that should have been impossible for a first-contact species. "Sub-Commander," Vex Thor said quietly, "analyze their shield harmonics. Something isn't right here." Zarkax's claws danced across the tactical display. "Sir, their defensive systems are far more advanced than their vessel's size would suggest. And there's something else. Their power signature is—" Before he could finish, alarms blared across the bridge. The human vessel's energy readings had suddenly spiked, but not in any way that indicated weapon charging. Instead, It seemed to be receiving something. Multiple quantum signatures detected. The sensor officer shouted. They're identical to the human vessel, but they're appearing throughout the nebula. Vexthor's blood ran cold as the tactical display updated. Dozens, then hundreds of phantom signatures began appearing, each one exactly matching the horizon's energy pattern. Either they were dealing with the most sophisticated holographic technology he'd ever encountered, or, "Sir," Captain Chen's voice came through again, now tinged with regret. "I should inform you that we detected your empire's recent annexation of the Meridian cluster. The genocide of the peaceful Meridians hasn't gone unnoticed. We hoped first contact could proceed differently, but your empire's actions demanded a response." The phantom signatures suddenly solidified on sensors. They weren't holograms. Somehow, this single human vessel had called forth an entire fleet from quantum space, each ship an exact duplicate of the original. "Open fire," Vexthor commanded, but it was too late. The human vessels, real or phantom, it no longer mattered, had already begun their attack. The Eternal Dominion's supposedly impenetrable shields collapsed under weapons that seemed to ignore the laws of physics themselves. The last thing Supreme Commander Vexthor saw before emergency transport was the sight of his mighty flagship being systematically disabled by weapons fired from ships that, according to everything he knew about science, couldn't possibly exist. The Drachnid Empire had ruled this sector for 10,000 years. But in the span of 10 minutes, everything they thought they knew about their military superiority had been upended by a single human ship that became many. The age of uncontested Drachnid dominion had ended. The era of humanity had begun. Pride before the fall. The War Council chamber of the Dominion's crown hummed with tension as 5,000 years of military doctrine clashed with an enemy that defied convention. Holographic displays showed the gathered might of the Drachnid Empire. Over 2,000 warships arranged in traditional combat formation, the largest fleet assembled in living memory. High Marshal Rekfos, Supreme Commander of all Drachnid military forces, stood before the gathered admirals. His scales had dulled with age, but his eyes burned with the same intensity that had won him command of the Empire's forces. "The human vessel has made us look like hatchlings playing at war," he growled. "But today that ends. Today, we show them the true might of the Drachnid Empire." The tactical display shifted to show their target, the Helios defense platform, where the Phantom had last been detected. The massive installation floated in space like a glittering jewel, surrounded by layers of defense satellites and patrol vessels. "Our scientists believe they've identified a pattern in the human ship's quantum signature," Rekfos continued. "Each time it generates duplicates, there's a momentary surge in tachyon particles. If we can detect that surge early enough—" "With respect, High Marshal," a voice interrupted. Scale Master Nixtia stepped forward, her presence barely tolerated in this gathering of military minds. "The humans must know we'd eventually detect the tachyon surge. They're too advanced to make such an obvious mistake. Your concern is noted, Scale Master," Rekfos dismissed. "But the Empire has faced threats before. We survived the Nexus Wars. We defeated the Swarm. This human vessel, advanced as it may be, cannot stand against the combined might of our fleet." The gathered admirals chittered in agreement, their pride demanding validation. Only Grand Admiral Kexlar remained silent, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. "The fleet will deploy in 3 waves," Rekfos announced. "The outer sphere will maintain constant scanner coverage. The moment the Phantom appears, our new tachyon detection grid will prevent it from generating duplicates. The second wave will pin it in place with graviton beams, while the inner sphere delivers the killing blow." As if on cue, alarms blared throughout the chamber. "High Marshal, the Phantom has been detected approaching the platform." Perfect timing. Rekfos's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. "All ships, battle positions. Let's show these humans what real warfare looks like." The massive Drachnid fleet moved with practiced precision, forming the 3 concentric spheres of their attack formation. At the center, the Helios platform pulsed with energy, its quantum core powering the enhanced defensive screens. The Phantom appeared exactly where their calculations predicted, a sleek shadow against the backdrop of space. But something was wrong. It made no attempt to evade or generate duplicates. Instead, it broadcast on an open channel. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth vessel Horizon," the now familiar voice announced. "Your Empire's response has been instructive. We needed to understand if you were capable of learning, of adapting. Instead, you've demonstrated exactly why the Meridians required our intervention. Open fire," Rekvos commanded. 2,000 ships unleashed their weapons simultaneously, enough firepower to shatter a small moon. The space around the Phantom lit up like a newborn star. When the energy dissipated, the human ship remained untouched. Worse, sensors showed it had somehow absorbed the energy of their attack, its power readings now off the scale. "Thank you for the combat data." Captain Chen's voice was almost gentle. "And for gathering your fleet so conveniently in one place. Now let us show you what one human ship can really do." The Phantom's hull began to shimmer, not with the familiar quantum duplication effect, but with something entirely new. Space itself seemed to bend around it, reality distorting in ways that made the Drachnid sensors scream in protest. "Impossible," Nixtia whispered, her scientific detachment finally cracking. "They're manipulating the quantum fabric itself." The human vessel's transformation completed, revealing what appeared to be a web of pure energy extending outward in all directions. As the Drachnid fleet watched in horror, their ship's quantum cores began to resonate with the energy web, their carefully maintained formations dissolving into chaos. "What's happening?" Rekvos demanded as system after system began shutting down across the fleet. "They're not destroying our ships," Kexler realized, watching the tactical display. "They're reprogramming them, rewriting our quantum technology at the fundamental level." Throughout the fleet, weapons powered down. Engines fell silent. Even life support systems reconfigured themselves to optimal levels. In less than 5 minutes, the mightiest fleet in Drachnid history had been transformed into a floating monument to human technological superiority. "Your Empire's greatest flaw," Captain Chen's voice returned, "was believing that might alone grants the right to rule. Consider this a lesson in humility. Your ships will remain operational for life support and basic functions only. When you're ready to discuss the future of peaceful coexistence in this sector, we'll be waiting." The Phantom vanished, leaving behind 2,000 of the Empire's finest warships, transformed into powerless hulks by technology that shouldn't exist. And in the War Council chamber, High Marshal Rekvos faced a truth more painful than any military defeat. The Drachnid Empire wasn't just outmatched. They were obsolete. The Ghost Fleet Protocol, the great archive of the Drachnid science cast, had never been this crowded. Hundreds of the Empire's brightest minds gathered in the vast crystalline chamber, their scales reflecting the soft blue light of countless holographic displays. At the center stood Scale Master Nixtia, surrounded by quantum modeling simulations of the human vessel's technology. "The Ghost Fleet Protocol," she announced to the assembled scientists, "is unlike anything we theorized possible. We thought the humans were creating quantum duplicates of their ship. We were wrong. They were doing something far more sophisticated." The main display showed a complex visualization of quantum fields interacting with normal space. "They're not creating copies, they're manipulating probability itself. Each duplicate represents a quantum possibility made manifest. In essence, they're pulling alternate versions of their ship from parallel realities where those ships already exist." A ripple of shocked murmurs spread through the chamber. Grand Admiral Kexlar, standing at the back of the room, felt his own scientific training from his youth, struggling to comprehend the implications. "But that's not all," Nixtia continued. "The attack on our fleet revealed their true capability. They've developed technology that can rewrite quantum structures at will. Our ship's cores weren't just disabled, they were fundamentally altered at the subatomic level." "Can we counter it?" someone asked. "Counter it?" Nixtia's laugh held no humor. We're barely beginning to understand how it works. The humans have mastered technology that we thought was theoretically impossible. They're not just ahead of us. They're operating on a completely different level of scientific understanding. The display shifted to show readings from the disabled fleet. Each of our quantum cores has been rewritten with what appears to be an entirely new form of physics. The equations governing these changes. They're beautiful in their elegance. It's like they found a deeper layer of reality that we never knew existed. Kexlar stepped forward. You sound impressed, Scale Master. Need I remind you that this technology was used to cripple our entire fleet? That's just it, Admiral. Nixtia's eyes gleamed with excitement. They could have destroyed us. Instead, they gave us a glimpse of what's possible. Look at these power readings. Our cores are actually operating more efficiently now, even in their limited state. They didn't just defeat us. They showed us how primitive our understanding truly is. The chamber's entrance eyed open, admitting an unexpected visitor. High Marshal Rekvos, his once proud posture now bearing the weight of recent events, approached the central platform. The High Council has made a decision, he announced, his voice heavy. We are initiating diplomatic contact with the humans. Shocked silence fell over the chamber. In the Empire's entire history, they had never been the ones to sue for peace. There's something else you need to see, Nixtia said, manipulating the display. We've been analyzing long-range sensor data from the edge of our territory. The quantum distortions we detected, they're not just from one ship. The hologram expanded to show the vast expanse of space around the Empire. Countless quantum signatures pulsed in the darkness, each one matching the sophisticated patterns of human technology. Thousands of ships, Nixtia confirmed, all with the same capabilities as the Phantom, all waiting just outside our borders. The single ship that defeated us, it wasn't their best technology, Admiral. It was a diplomatic mission, a demonstration. All this time, Rekvos said quietly, we thought we were the advanced civilization, bringing order to primitive species. We never imagined that we might be the primitive ones. Nixtia completed. The humans have shown us that there are depths to reality we never dreamed of. The question now is, are we humble enough to learn? The display focused on a single quantum signature, the Phantom, still maintaining its silent vigil near the disabled fleet. Its presence was no longer a threat, but a challenge. A challenge to the Drachnid Empire to evolve beyond their millennia of conquest and face a future where they were no longer the most advanced species in known space. In the Great Archive, surrounded by the combined knowledge of their civilization, the leaders of the Drachnid Empire faced a choice: cling to their pride and face obsolescence, or embrace a new age of discovery and growth. The humans had given them that choice, even after the Empire had given them every reason to simply destroy them instead. A lesson in humanity. The diplomatic chamber aboard the Helios platform had been transformed. Where once Drachnid war trophies lined the walls, now only empty space remained. A symbolic gesture of humility demanded by recent events. High Marshal Rekvos, Grand Admiral Kexlar, and Scale Master Nixtia waited in tense silence as the human delegation prepared to board. Still no weapon signature, Kexlar noted, studying his datapad. Their shuttle approaches completely undefended. They don't need weapons anymore, Rekvos replied grimly. They've proven that. The chamber's quantum-reinforced doors slid open. Captain Sarah Chen entered, accompanied by two other humans. They wore simple blue uniforms without rank insignia or decorations, another stark contrast to the ornate military dress of the Drachnid officials. High Marshal, Grand Admiral, Scale Master, Chen nodded to each in turn. Thank you for agreeing to these talks. You didn't leave us much choice, Rekvos said, his mandibles tight with carefully controlled anger. There's always a choice, one of Chen's companions spoke, an older human with silver hair. I'm Dr. Marcus Zhang, Chief Scientist of the Earth Exploration Fleet. We've reviewed your civilization's scientific archives, shared with us by Scale Master Nixtia. Your people have achieved remarkable things. And yet you disabled our entire fleet with a single ship, Kexlar pointed out. A regrettable necessity, Chen replied. But notice what we didn't do. We didn't destroy your ships. We didn't kill your crews. We didn't even damage your infrastructure. We simply showed you your limitations. Nixtia stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overwhelming protocol. Your quantum manipulation technology. It's beyond anything we thought possible. The way you rewrite fundamental forces at will. Dr. Zhang smiled. Actually, what you saw was relatively primitive by our standards. We chose to use technology that you could theoretically understand and eventually replicate. A gesture of good faith. The Drachnid leaders exchanged shocked glances. Primitive. Their best scientists were still struggling to comprehend what they'd witnessed. Why? Rekvos demanded. Why show us mercy when we showed none to the Meridians? Because that's the real test of advancement. The third human spoke for the first time. Ambassador Elena Torres, her dark eyes holding centuries of human wisdom. Not whether you can defeat an enemy, but whether you choose not to when you have the power to do so. She gestured, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed thousands of worlds, spreading out across the galaxy. This is the United Earth Federation. We've encountered hundreds of species, faced countless challenges. Do you know what we learned? The display shifted, showing scenes of different species working together, sharing technology, building something greater than their individual civilizations. We learned that true power isn't about dominance. Torres continued. It's about elevation. Every species we've encountered has something unique to offer. The Meridian's biomechanical interfaces, the Jovian collective's zero-point energy theories, even your own quantum core designs. Flawed as they are, they show remarkable innovation. You're offering us partnership, Kexlar asked incredulously. We're offering you evolution, Chen corrected. A chance to become something more than conquerors. Your empire has stood for millennia, but you've stagnated. You stopped growing because you stopped learning from others. Nixtia's scales rippled with excitement. The quantum modifications you made to our ships, they weren't just to disable them, were they? They're templates, teaching tools. Dr. Zhang nodded approvingly. Very good, Scale Master. Each modification contains encrypted data packets, the basic principles of quantum probability manipulation. Consider it a primer for your scientists, the first step toward true understanding. And if we refuse? Rekvos asked, though his tone had lost its edge. Then we leave your ships as they are, establish a quarantine zone around your space. And wait, Torres said simply. We found that species either evolve beyond imperialism, or they collapse under their own weight. The choice is yours. The chamber fell silent as the weight of the moment pressed down on them all. Thousands of years of Drachnid history, of military supremacy and unquestioned expansion, balanced against a future they could barely comprehend. Finally, Rekvos spoke, his voice carrying the authority of his position, but tempered with something new, humility. The Drachnid Empire accepts your offer, Ambassador. We have much to learn. No, Nixtia interrupted, surprising everyone. The Drachnid Empire is a relic of our past. If we're to embrace this future, we need a new identity. She turned to her fellow leaders. We are the Drachnid Confederation now, and we have so many questions to ask. Captain Chen smiled, the first true smile they'd seen from her. That, Scale Master, is exactly why humanity chose to reveal ourselves to your people. Not your military might or your territorial ambitions. We saw your potential to grow beyond them. As the formal negotiations began, the holographic display continued to show scenes of cooperation and advancement across known space. The mighty Drachnid Empire had indeed fallen that day, but something far greater was rising to take its place. They had learned humanity's greatest lesson. True strength lies not in the power to destroy, but in the wisdom to build something better together. In the vast darkness of space, the quantum signatures of the human fleet began to fade as ships returned to their normal duties. They left behind not a conquered enemy, but a new ally taking its first steps into a larger universe. The age of empires was ending. The age of understanding had begun.